Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Today is a maintenance video, or I guess replacing a part video. As you guys already saw in the title, we are working on the 2007 Eclipse that I picked up a few weeks ago. And I haven't had too much interest on this car, but I have definitely been driving it. And when you start it, sometimes it will start in 2 seconds, sometimes it will literally take 6-7 seconds. So my assumption is it's the starter. And because I want every car that I sell to be as ready as possible, I went ahead and bought a new starter for this thing. And this is what it looks like. Big heavy piece. But surprisingly it was fairly inexpensive. It was like $40 or $50 for this car. As far as I know, this procedure will work for a few cars. The Galant, Mitsubishi Galant, the Eclipse, and one more I think. Basically, if you have a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder Mitsubishi, there it is, 2.4 16 valve. Oh, you guys can't really see that, but this will work. And from my understanding, we will have to take off the headers, the O2 sensors for both banks, and then basically just remove this whole assembly. This is where we'll be kind of working from this angle. So you got your headers here, front of the engine right here. And we're gonna start with taking off the heat shield, which is a 14mm socket. I'll just continue working around where I can. So this one right here at the bottom was very difficult. And I literally just used these two. I couldn't put the wrench all the way on, so I just kind of held it with my fingers and tried twisting it. It worked, it broke it loose. So now I'm trying to, by hand, just as you guys can see, there's almost no room in here to work. So it turns out all of these are just nuts. So a nut and a washer. This is what that looks like. Here's the first piece of the heat shield. Set it to the side. So surprisingly, the top ones did not have a washer. There we go, and that should slide off, as you guys can see. Since we are already up here, let's remove the O2 sensors. It's a 22mm. Some people have O2 sensor removal sockets. I do not, but it's fairly easy to get to them from here, so we'll try that. And I have encountered my first roadblock, so to say. This O2 sensor does not want to budge. I've replaced a few O2 sensors, not on this car, but others. I have not struggled this much. It just will not move. So I was able to get the O2 sensor to break loose, but busted up my fingers pretty good in the process. And I would imagine that burning this stuff off is gonna be fun once I first start the car. Something like this. Maybe it's time for a new O2 sensor. Another thing, it was a mistake to start with the headers. I should have taken out the O2 sensors first, because the headers move when I try to remove the O2 sensors. So just put the bolts back, or if you're watching this video, before you do the job, do the O2 sensors first. The most important part with an O2 sensor is just breaking it loose, and then it's fairly easy. So this is how I was able to get in at an angle right here with my wrench. And then the rest can be done by hand. Here we have the second one. Next step is to get the car lifted so we could undo the headers. Well, headers and the cats from the bottom, and then we should be able to slide them out. And move them out of the way and get to the other heat shield. Here's how that looks. Remember, safety first. Use jack stands. I have mine right there propped on the frame underneath the car. Looking at the front of the car, going underneath. This is where we're working. There are 4 bolts right there. I would assume they will be the same size, 14 millimeter. It looks like there's a few bolts and a few nuts. The angle in there is pretty darn terrible to get in with a camera. But this is what we're working with. This was a 14 millimeter, and for whatever reason it took a 17 millimeter to take these off, although they look like 14 millimeters. Either they have a whole bunch of rust around them or whatnot, but this is what I used to take those out, and then the 14 millimeter was just a standard extended socket. But with this out, we should, in theory, be able to pull that whole assembly out from the top. Oh, look at that, like butter. This is it. One thing you want to do is put some kind of, I don't know, cloth or paper towels in there, just so that nothing falls in there, because if it does, good luck getting it out. These are just 10 millimeter. Looks like there's 4 of them. And there's our starter. Fantastic. We want to compare, make sure everything looks the same, which it does. So let's take it out. There we go. That pin. These are not 10s, I think. Yeah. So that will be a 12. Well, whoops, we don't need to take this part off. So I'll just put this nut on. We did need to take this part off. Here's our starter. So in order to get the 2 bolts out, which are right here, 1 and 2, we have to get this piece out of the way. And it's held by, I believe, 2 12s. Behind this, there are 2 more. Right there. Same size, 12 millimeter. So now, see that? We have access. Now we will need an open hand wrench to take out these 2 bolts. So these are 14 millimeter. Broke one of them loose. Now doing the bottom one. I don't like this, guys. Seems like I'm stripping that bolt. I managed to get both of them broken loose. So this bottom one I'm doing by hand. And then I'll try to do the top one. This is what that looks like. Top one I will not be able to do by hand. Guys, this is slow and absolutely painful process. But there is no other way that I was able to find. Oh, there it is. It is about 85 degrees outside, and this This right here is what it took to get the starter out and in. So now we are working backwards. So I took the bolts out of this one right here. So we're gonna have to put this one back in. Yeah, right more. There we go, easy. So my new starter came with a bolt or a nut, guys. So we're putting a new one in. Figured I'd just clean this up a little bit. Just so the connection is as good as it can be. Just like that, guys. Next up is this heat shield, except I don't remember how it went. There we go. These are 10mm. Yeah, we could take these napkins out. 1 and 2. Careful with the gasket. And gently down we go. Now getting underneath and putting those bolts and nuts in. Almost done reassembling, guys. If I am not mistaken, the bottom 3 had washers on them. And the center one was the hardest one. Yup, I remember. Let me do the side one first. I just remembered something. We still have this guy. Thankfully, you could get it in there somewhat like this, tighten it all the way, and then wrench, just tighten it a little bit more. So, don't remember how I did it. This is the way I'm able to do it. Посмотрим, солнышко. There we go, guys. Final step, O2 sensors. Now, you guys could disconnect the O2 sensor and then reconnect it again. Now this side, same story. This one was a lot easier. That's it for this job, guys. Let's connect the battery and see if it'll start. You guys see all that smoke? That's WD-40 burning off. Just like I called it. Before you get started, these are all the tools you will need. You will need a jack. You might need a breaker bar. This is what I have at home to use. These are the 3 different variations of the 14 millimeter that I've used. This is a 17 millimeter. That's for the bottom exhaust. 12 millimeter. A lot of bolts and nuts are 12 millimeter. 10 millimeter, most common. You got your 2 wrenches right here. Extender, and then a 22 millimeter for your O2 sensors. I use some PB Blaster, which is right here, or you could use WD-40 for those tighter nuts. But essentially, this is all you need to get the job done.